I'm HLNA. I'm going to exposition dump you and then let you die.
Hello, I'm HLNA.
Oh my god. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the second episode of the ARK of Painting. Now today we're going to be painting a good old scene from Genesis Part 1. Now we're going to roll the colors across the screen, and using a canvas and our paintbrush, let's go on in here with our lightning coloring. And let's just shade in the sky just right here. Just shade it in however which way you want. And maybe the sky is part of the big old swamps of Genesis, the bog. Oh man. And some people say the bog is easy. I disagree. Why? Why is this supposed to be easy? How is it that I can just find a baryonyx? A baryonyx was 2 baryonyxes were killed. How? I don't know. Are you?
That never happened.
I do not want to talk to you anymore. The bog is one dangerous place, but there's some beauty in it, so we're going to try and capture it today. So now let's grab our crystal coloring, and let's start making an indication of a big old swamp tree. Just one of those huge ones, just like so. And just start shading it in, and who knows, maybe we'll add a couple little vines. Just make little loops and all sorts of happy little things up there. Who knows, maybe we'll add an indication of a bloodstalker. What joyous creatures. Let's add a couple more little pieces just every now and then. And who knows, maybe in our world, there's that big old pillar where the bog beatdown is. Now with this fog in the bog, it's hard to see the detail of things, so we're going to keep it as simple as possible. Now that we have our shape, let's grab our electricity and let's start softening the edges. The fogs of Genesis sure are strong, and that level of detail on the edges will be hard to see from a distance. Now let's do the same blending to the top of our tree. Now let's grab a little piece of our shamrock coloring, and let's add these little circles, just like it is on that one big pillar in the distance. And let's add all sorts of little glows all around. And now let's grab a little bit of our celadon, and let's make the refined edges of those circles. And now let's go back in with our crystal coloring, and let's soften these edges up even more. And oh, why don't we add a little bit of our menthol coloring as well, just right on top, there. And now going back in with our crystal coloring, let's add a few little cliffs in the distance. Maybe there's some trees on top, who knows. And don't worry about the detail. With this fog you can get away with a lot. And now let's add this strange little curved pillar. And why don't we add a second one to the side? Now let's start filling in this little foreground right here, and leave a little bit of space right at the bottom of our pillar. Oh, maybe in our world, and using our seafoam, there's a little bit of mist from those waterfalls that just go down. Now let's soften up all the edges here, and add little dots in the inside, just to give the illusion of distance. Bring back some of the edges, just a little hint. And with our crystal coloring, let's go shade in the rest of the foreground. There. And let's take a large dollop of our ocean coloring, and let's add a little strip of land right there. And let's zoom in and start adding the trunks of little swamp trees. And maybe there's a couple little bushes right there, who knows. And now the best way for me to make leaves is to use our large brush at the beginning and just add little spots. And then we'll go in with our small brush and add in the detail. And just like our background, let's sort of decay this little patch of trees, and it gives that little illusion of distance. Now let's add another patch of land right here. Maybe it's a little bigger, loops around a little bit, but these same trees will be there. Just keep adding them every which way. And maybe in our world, there's a big old tree right there. Maybe it's a little chunky, who knows. Add another tree right there, and start building in our leaves in the back. Now let's go back to our bigger trees, and make these patches of leaves just a little bit thicker. And now let's go in with our small brush, and add in those tiny little leaves. And if they're floating, don't worry, they float in ARK anyway. And maybe the land swoops around just a little bit more. Since the swamp is covered in water, let's go grab our lightning coloring, same as our sky. And let's add a little ripple effect in the water, just a little reflection of that sky. And now this is my favorite part. Let's grab our Skobeloff coloring, and let's make the outline of a tree in our foreground right here. And let's go from the top and start adding these happy little branches up there. And remember, the farther a branch goes from the roots, the smaller it becomes. Let's add a couple little leaves right there. And now let's shade in our tree, add a couple little pieces of moss, and bring in the land just a little bit farther. Now let's go back with our ocean coloring, and let's start painting in the ground right here. Maybe there's a couple little pieces of grass that just pop up and down, and maybe it wraps around this tree, and maybe the tree wraps around it. So let's bring our scoble off and let it just take over. Let the darkness come in. And now darkness isn't a bad thing. In fact, you can't have light without dark. Now let's work on this foreground a little bit. Maybe there's a stump of an almighty flower. And oh, maybe over here, there's this broken log with little sticks coming out. Now let's go back to our almighty flower over here, and let's start building the stem. Maybe there are a couple little leaves over here, who knows. And maybe let's go in with our celadon coloring. Let's start making a little bud, and I want it to be a light source. So let's add little highlights all around the stump of our flower. Take your khaki coloring and start making the general shape of this flower. Maybe there's a little bit of green that comes back in a little bit. And let's go in with our buttermilk coloring and start making the edge of these petals just shine a little bit more. And who knows, maybe we'll add a little bit of cantaloupe. And oh, what the heck, let's go into our mold coloring and make even more contrast in this flower. Let's go in with our pistachio coloring and make a little glow. Let's add a little reflection, a happy little flower in one dark place. Now I don't think our foreground is complete just yet, so let's grab a little bit of our Mariana coloring and make the shadow of one almighty tree. Maybe it goes up and it just takes over, and maybe I overdid it. So let's bring our previous tree down a little bit. See, these kind of things can happen when you improvise a painting completely. I didn't plan for a single bit of this. It really is your own little world out there. And oh, maybe there's another bush right there. And that's those narcoberry plants. Now let's add a combination of our Prussian for the dark, our azure for the light, and our sapphire for the base. Maybe it's engulfed in darkness a little bit more. And who knows, maybe there's just smaller indications of a couple more narco plants. Maybe it's a whole family of them. And who knows, maybe there's a big old grass patch, and you can add as many details as you want. But I'm not sure what else I could improvise. So why don't we go ahead and sign our painting. I hope you enjoyed this episode today, and I hope you learned something. Happy painting, and go check out The Real Bob Ross.